Kersting shares stories of teens walking into traffic while texting or risking their lives with a selfie. And it sounds extreme until you realize how common it actually is. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our Conversation Book Club. I am so glad that you're here. Today we're digging into Chapter 2 of Disconnected, titled Cyberspace Children, a Full-Time Job. The title alone says a lot. And this chapter really drove home just how much digital life has become not just a part of kids' routines, but the reality, and not always in ways we fully realize. So let's start with something simple but staggering. 2004, kids ages 8 to 18 spent an average of 6.5 hours a day on electronic media. By 2008, 7 hours and 38 minutes. And now, the average teen spends over 9 hours a day, and that's not even counting school-related tech use. And heavy users hit 13 hours and 20 minutes daily. That's nearly every waking hour. And I know screen time is a normal part of life now, especially post-pandemic, but Kersting makes a powerful point here. This isn't just about how much time they're on screens, it's about what they're not doing instead. They're not getting bored and figuring out how to entertain themselves. They're occupied, but are they engaged with the world? It's not judgment, but it is a pause point. And as a parent, it made me think about what we've come to accept as normal. Kersting shares stories of teens walking into traffic while texting or risking their lives with a selfie. And it sounds extreme until you realize how common it actually is. One line that struck me was this: when so much energy is funneled into diversions, there's none left for basic human functions. It's not just about safety, it's about focus, presence, purpose. These moments of doing something dangerous for digital approval shows us how powerful the pull of validation has become. We used to ask, what were they thinking? And now I think we know. They weren't. They were chasing a ping of approval. And if I'm honest, I felt that way too, that little rush when a post gets a like, the temptation to capture a moment instead of just being in it. It's not just kids, it's all of us. The idea that comparison steals our joy and our peace reminded me of a story that I think parents will share with their kids to help them explore that feeling in a little different way. It's called The Garden of Enough. So there's a girl named Jackie who lived in a village where each home had a small garden. And every day, neighbors would walk past and compliment each other's flowers. How colorful, how tall, how rare. Jackie started spending hours comparing her garden to everyone else's. She replanted, rearranged, watered twice as much, and stayed up at night worrying if her roses were as red as the ones down the street. And one afternoon, her grandmother noticed the stress in her eyes, and she said gently, "Jackie, when did your garden stop being something you loved and start being something that you feared wasn't good enough?" That night, Jackie sat by her garden in silence. She realized she had been so busy comparing that she hadn't noticed how lovely her own flowers had become. And the lesson here, focusing on what others have, can make us blind to what we've grown ourselves. And then you can ask your child this question: have you ever felt like something you enjoyed suddenly felt stressful because you were comparing it to someone else? Or you could ask them, what's something that you're proud of, not because someone else said so, but because you know how hard you worked on it? Moving on, this one stat that hit me on a different level was this: 53% of teens admitted to deleting their browsing history, so their parents wouldn't know what they've been looking at. So that's not just curiosity, that they're occupied, but are they engaged with the world? It's not judgment, but it is a pause point. And as a parent, it made me think about what we've come to accept as normal. Kersting shares stories of that's about secrecy. And it tells me that our kids know when they're doing something questionable online, but instead of turning to us with questions or for guidance, they're covering their tracks. That's a relationship issue, not just a rules issue. It made me wonder, are we creating an environment where our kids feel like they can be honest with us? Or are we just defaulting to surveillance and control? Because fear-driven parenting won't fix what's broken here. Connection will. Kersting also gets into the physical toll, things like tech neck and phantom vibrations, and even stomach selfie from holding in your gut for photos. Now, I know that sounds a little funny, but then he shares something else. Kids are so reliant on devices that they're losing their fine motor skills. There's a line about kids not being able to sign their names anymore because all they've ever known are keypads and screens. And it's a reminder that this isn't just a brain shift, it's a body shift. It's changing how our kids move through the world. There was also this quiet, chilling part in this chapter that almost gets no airtime. Young children's developing brains absorb twice as much radiation as adult brains. And while researchers say that it could take 10 to 20 years before we fully understand the risks, Kersting reminds us that long-term exposure during childhood could lead to brain tumors and cancer. Just because something is everywhere doesn't mean that it's safe. Cigarettes were everywhere once, too. So were lead-based toys. So it's about paying attention now, not decades from now when the data finally catches up. Kersting also challenges us to reconsider not just when our kids get access to technology, but whether they're emotionally and mentally ready for it. That idea reminded me of a simple story about patience and responsibility. It's called The Map Maker's Apprentice. A young boy named Ryan wanted to become a great map maker like his uncle, who had explored vast mountains and deep forest. Every day, Ryan begged to go on an expedition. So one day, his uncle handed him a blank map and said, "Chart the path to the top of the hill behind the village." And so Ryan raced off, and he came back with a sloppy sketch. And his uncle smiled at him, and he said, "So, how many steps did it take? How did the wind sound near the top? What birds did you see?" Ryan looked down. He hadn't noticed any of those things. His uncle said, "A real map isn't just where you went, it's about what you learned along the way." And the lesson here, sometimes we want big responsibilities before we're ready, but practice, observation, and patience helps us to learn it. And then you can ask your child this question: have you ever felt like you were ready for something and then realized there was more to learn? Or another question you could ask is, why do you think Ryan's uncle started him with a small challenge instead of a big journey? Now to the next point. He talks about something at the end of the chapter called brexting, which is breastfeeding and texting. And we know that those are supposed to be moments of bonding and emotional development, and now they're being fractured. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Because what are we teaching our children when our attention is split between them and our screens? We want our kids to look up, to be present, to feel seen. But they learn that first from us. And that theme of presence and connection brought to mind one last story, one about doing nothing together. It's called The Stone Bench. In the middle of a busy town stood a stone bench under a quiet tree, and for generations, parents and children had come there to talk, to rest, to just be. But over time, the bench became empty. People rushed past it with their to-do lists, music in their ears, eyes on their shoes. One day, a young boy saw an old man sitting alone on the bench, and he asked, "What are you doing here?" The man smiled. He said, "I'm doing the most important thing. Nothing. Just waiting." And the boy sat beside him. They didn't speak much, but for the first time in a while, the boy felt something he hadn't felt: peace. And the lesson here is connection doesn't require words or noise. Sometimes it just means being fully present with someone. And you can ask the question, when was the last time you sat with someone and didn't need to say anything? Or what would it feel like to have more moments like that in your day? So chapter 2 left me with this. Technology isn't the villain, but our unchecked use of it can slowly chip away at the things we value most: connection, presence, resilience. And the most dangerous part, we might not even notice it happening. But we're here having this conversation. We're noticing. And that's where change begins. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, keep having conversations.